You are at the GTFS webinar brought to you by the Bureau of Transportation Statistics and the National Rural Transit Assistance Program. The audio line, if you need it, you probably can't hear me if you needed it, but it's in the chat line here. I've also provided a link in the chat for a collective notes document. So if we're all taking notes on the same document, we can benefit from each other's perspectives, and that will be shared with everybody. Also, a quick note: this is being recorded, so know that before you speak. And then this session will be available for download. It will be closed captioned, and also a transcript will be available. So if there are no questions right now, I'll turn it over to Marcy, and she can get us started. So if there are no questions, everybody's okay? All right, Marcy, I'm gonna hand it over to you.
I'm not entirely clear if you're seeing the proper screen. Are you, everyone? Gerald, yes?
I can see it.
Okay, fantastic. Welcome, and if those of you who do not know me, I'm extremely passionate about supporting you in your efforts to get GTFS going. I do live in a port town. That's a real picture of a background in Port Townsend, Washington, where I am. And Daryl brings you the cherry blossoms so you can think about Washington, D.C. in the season. We will review what is and how to GTFS, what your options are for hosting your GTFS with a free option with National RTAP. Daryl will explain National Transit Map, and we will be available for question and answer. We do have some options, and we like to explore those options for you as well, which includes web-based or these free Excel tools. So let's just quickly review what you need for full function GTFS. This is not the entire list, but there is a web link at the bottom of this page which identifies some or many of the toolkits that have been available. Not all of them are tested, but we want you to know there's a variety available. The Urbaniris toolkit offers a timetable. You fill that in or upload your Excel, and then you can easily use a web-based tool to snap and create your GTFS shapes file. Today, we're not reviewing that option of the web-based tools, but more importantly, what has been available and is in use for the state of Maryland. They do a mix and match with some of the web-based tools, and then they post-process their data in the GTFS Builder Excel-based toolkit because some of the functions might not always be available in the free or alternate available web-based tools. So we're just assuring you that if the entire state of Maryland was able to build the GTFS that they needed for their agencies and a wide range of conditions were created and resolved, it will work for you. We think about GTFS in 3 simple steps. Step 1, gather the bus stops. Step 2, build the schedules. Step 3, generate GTFS. Let's jump in. For those of you who haven't been staring at this as much as Daryl or I have, there are 13 different data files, and James Wong put together a graphic. So for those of you who want to stare at an image rather than a list of specifications, he helps us realize these are the trip data elements that we need. So if you look at a sample of what those 13 text files might look like, the most simple of which being the agency text file, it would just be a comma separated value where literally you could just go to a notepad and start typing things in. That would be true for maybe half of our files, but we need an Excel spreadsheet to do a wider range of functions that you will find. And notice that there is some color coding at the bottom, and we're going to use that in our building of the data. So for those of you who want to see the reference document, that's what Google offers. In terms of that color coding, we have prepared, and you should have in your toolkit when you download it from National RTAP, a version of this trip plan that dissects the trip plan for each of the colors. And so now if you were looking at stop times or an arrival time, you could see where in the green tab that data might come from, or fares in the pink or mauve color. Stops are in the dark blue. So now we're trying to take away the fear that GTFS is anything more than a series of data elements that can be managed inside a series of 2 Excel files. So why did we create 2 files? We believe that you may have different members of your staff with different skills or availability, because often you do wear multiple hats. So we'd like someone in your agency that knows how to manage the bus stops, maybe the calendars, the fares, and is willing to go through the full process to be available in the import-export workbook. If they are an expert on the timetables, maybe someone in operations, they will generate the schedules for us. And the schedules are just a series of bus stops in bus stop order with the times associated. Let's dive a little deeper to see how you would set up your computer for the GTFS Builder workbooks. Your computer must have Google Earth on it. This toolkit will not work. It looks for libraries. It will fail if you haven't loaded a version of Google Earth. It doesn't need, I think now it's called Google Earth Pro. It does not need to be a paid version unless that's a policy for your agency, but a must requirement is Google Earth. And at this point, we do not have a Mac version that's available. We can only do this via PC. So we have a series of Excel spreadsheets, some sample documents so that if you need to review the non-disclosure agreement or the sample contract, those are available for you in the packet that you receive from National RTAP. And you'll also want to have the validation tools, and we'll show you where to get those. Another requirement or benefit of using these Excel spreadsheets is that we use macros in order to move the data along. So your folder that you create must allow for those macros to be enabled, and it expedites the output of the 13 files. So this is the process. I'm not going to go through exactly how you click on File, then Options, then Trust Center, but trust me that there's a video, and you will find out that there's nearly a video for everything available for you to watch at your pace when you're ready to learn about macros, if that was not intuitive for you in your daily work. When or if you decide that you want to publish with Google, and while this focus today is how to generate your GTFS file, often we're asked, how do we make this go live at Google? There's an agreement and a non-disclosure agreement, a series of documents that you have to click through. So one step is to agree to terms. Another step is to have somewhere on the internet a schedule that's published. Yes, it could be through your Facebook page, but you can't just say we have a printed schedule. Google will require a web-based schedule. You need a bus stop, and you don't need a couch at the bus stop, but you do need to have a physical bus stop associated with your data. Those are the requirements to go live with Google. Since I'm getting older, and at some point you will no longer have my voice at the other end of the webinar, my hope is that as your agency decides to take this on, consider someone who might be young, enthusiastic, willing, and perhaps they're in AmeriCorps or a community college. They will be proud and honored to take on this task. So while this might be a muddy little graphic, you're going to gather your bus stops. My thought is that most of your agencies should already have them. They could be sitting on these muddy little graphics. You want to be able to geocode your bus stops so that the rider will know exactly where to stand. We have another video, it's 1.12 in our listing, that shows you how to go into Google Earth, drop some pins, name those pins, you right-click on the list of pins. Over here on the left in the My Places, you right-click on the globe, and you literally can go into the Excel document on a blank row, double click and paste that lat long into column E and column F from your Google Earth data. You may have a much easier way to get to your latitude and longitude. It needs to be in WGS 84. That's the standard, and it will project properly on the map. So again, a very short video, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. We'll review what I did in 30 seconds. Next, we have the schedules, and we've talked about that just a little. You might have seasonal schedules. You might have days of the week, weekdays versus weekend. Each of those data elements are going to go into the columns. So we might have our service ID of summer, the direction ID. While it's optional, we suggest that you fulfill an inbound outbound if that's in fact true, so a 0 and 1, or if it's a loop route, a 0. In the schedules workbook, you're going to put the stops in stop order, and what's most critical here is column F, where the stop ID is going to associate with those latitude and longitude that you created in step 1 for stops. Now each of those stops get assigned the time, and let's look at a couple of different methods that you can generate and save yourself effort in building those schedules. So here is Gunnison. Doesn't it look like they already have an Excel spreadsheet? It sure does to me. So we were able to take that data, and for those of you familiar with various tabs inside of Excel, we associate the fall tab with the time that needs to go in there. And if we've managed our data properly, top to bottom, maybe we had to do a quick transpose, we are no longer typing in anything. We're just reusing, recycling data that we have so that we can create a timetable in the format that Google requires. Another method, if you have hourly service, for example, is to use some of the functions within Excel to build an hourly timetable, adding one cell to the other plus 1 hour. So again, we're recreating, reusing what we have to generate the schedule. The function that we have inside of our schedules workbook when we complete our effort in the notes tab is to generate the stop times and trips. That is its primary function, and you will literally come up with, even if you have only 10 trips and 15 stops, you may have 500 to 1,000 rows of code because of the macros that we're using inside of the schedules workbook, and then we copy over the stop times and trips into the import-export workbook. And there is a step in there where we clear the old data, because if you start to remove things from Excel, we don't have a way to empty the spreadsheet. So do always stop at the clear calculated data at the bottom there. And you'll see this in the videos that we remind you and encourage you to follow our process in order to be successful. We're moving right along. We have this data. James gives us this graphic, and we say, I can do this. So now we're knitting together the stop times and the trips with the other important data elements. Our colored tabs remind us that there's a purpose in each of these tabs. And let's dive in a little further. This is our stops tab. Agency. We glanced at it before. Most of this information will not likely change. This agency charges no fare, so column G is empty. And if you do offer fares, Google offers a place on the website at Google Maps so that the rider can go back in and purchase a ticket and learn more about discounted fares for seniors, youth, monthly passes. And so I would encourage you to fill in column G when you can. Our next data element is in the shades of blue, which is the calendar tab. And the calendar tab is as simple as, do I have service that day of the week? So for this partner, Gunnison, they have service every day of the week. They just have seasonal peak service during different seasons. And so you'll see start and end dates to the right in columns I and J in the format year, month, day. If we had exceptions, or when we have exceptions and we do not have service on a particular day, we would set inside of our calendar the function of those exceptions by saying, 2, it's not available. We're not going to provide service on New Year's Day. We do have a way of offering Sunday service on the day after Thanksgiving. We would turn off the service and then turn on the Thanksgiving Sunday service, day after Thanksgiving Sunday service with a number 1. And we'll show you in a few minutes how you can get to all of these specifications so that you're not asked to remember anything, or you may just watch a certain video, 2 to 5 minute video, one more time. The Routes tab, mission critical. It assigns the name of the route and the type, whether it's a bus or a ferry. And so you cannot get away with, it's a bus without entering a number 3 in the Routes tab. If, for example, you have 101X as a route short name, anything with 6 characters or less would go into column C. This agency has no short names just because they have only one route. Stop times. We have generated this mountain of data, and I'm just showing you a little snapshot inside of our schedules workbook. And why do we show 06_30_00 in columns B and C for arrive and depart times? That is because when Excel tries to be helpful, if we left it as the function time, it would not allow us to have trips that go over midnight that hold together. So I don't know that all of you as agencies need that function, but don't change the data. Just leave it the way it is. It will return to the specification as a 24-hour clock or 25-hour clock when it gets exported in the macro. So just trust that that's going to work, but inside of the stop times tab, we are able to assign the shape ID if we've built a shape, and we'll discuss that very briefly, and test that that shape is actually matching up to each of the stops along the way. So somewhat at this moment is trust me that stop times will work. There's a place in here for all the important data. Trips assign to the data set what day of the week will that trip run. And this inbound, outbound direction, you can see that in column E for a 1 for inbound and 0 for outbound. Block ID is a function where if you want the rider to know whether they're going to stay on board when the head sign of the bus changes, that's again optional data. And we manage that block ID inside of the schedules workbook, and it gets put into the trips data. We're just showing you that this is full function GTFS in the Excel workbooks. Columns H and I will state whether that route is in fact wheelchair accessible, or if bikes could be allowed for the bus on that route, but not necessarily enough bike racks for every bike that may ever possibly want to ride. One of the functions that has become more important, and Google actually will ask you, and I think Daryl will also find this important, is feed info. It looks a bit like a duplicate of some other information that we have, but it allows you as the manager of the data to get the information back that you in fact need if someone has identified any concerns. So that's inside of feed info. It also allows you to see if you've uploaded your data to Google, what version is being published, and that can be very helpful. So the Import Export Notes tab allows you to view in this video 3.10 of stop to start, beginning to end of how to build your data, all the buttons you have to push to generate these 13 files. And once you create the 13 files, you literally select all and compress them and begin the next step, which is to validate and confirm there's nothing out of order. The Feed Validator is a toolkit free from Google, and you'll have some options here. You don't have to write down these links, but what you have when you download and unzip the feed information, executable files where you literally drag and drop your GTFS zipped file onto the schedule viewer and, for validation, the feed validator. We've also had the generosity of Transit Screen to offer us a way to upload the file to a feed validator for those of you who just don't want to make this extra step of creating your own PC-based validator. While we wish today in this 1 hour we could show you all the details of how to snap the route to the road, while all of you with GIS degrees can be 10 steps ahead of me here, we use some very simple tools inside of mymaps.google.com. We draw the route. Once we're there, we can create a KML file, and KML is the format that we want. We literally can copy and open that in Google Earth and then start to manipulate it as the shape file with any other extra details that we need. So we're copying and pasting from our shapes file data into the Excel spreadsheets, and all of that comes together with some ease. Look for the video on that in the advanced topics section. For those of you who might hit a hiccup that hosting your data at your website is somehow a firewall issue or a security breach or any concern, National RTAP, and this is our forthcoming, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to update to this view. And in the bottom where the arrow shows choose file, you can upload your zip file to National RTAP at your National RTAP in the account, free account. You'll be issued a link, and that link will allow you to give to Daryl what he needs for National Transit Map location of your data. So there is a place to upload the data there. A very quick scan when Google and you agree to terms and have signed the agreements. You identify a testing account so that you can test the GTFS file that you've created, and that's at the partner dash. What we're offering to all of you who are participants in population of less than 50,000, that we can support you with free technical assistance. I'll email you, I'll call you back, I'll review your file. I can't do all the elbow grease of typing in all of your stop times and trips, but once you get rolling, I am here to make sure if you hit any hiccup that we are available. So the dashboard that you will see has a whole series of helpful details. A color picker, so that if you are entering the color for your route, you don't have to go to the internet and hope you don't hit something funny. We've found a color picker that's safe. How to get to the feed validator tool, a sample license agreement. So all of these additional details are sitting inside of your account with National RTAP as helpful tools. I think somewhere on there is our calendar. Oh, at the bottom, calendar dates. So when you saw those year, month, day dates, we have the next 3-4 years already laid out for you, so you can just copy paste into your Excel spreadsheet. So there is our dashboard and the tools that you can find under the related links. I've mentioned, but now you can see the URL, and you'll just basically go to nationalrtap.org and surf around for GTFS Builder. If you haven't found these, there's no login required, and you'll go to that support center, and while you'll say, wow, that's a lot of videos, just target your attention and focus on the videos that are going to help you. A lot of the setting up piece you've already done by showing up today and possibly even downloading the toolkit. Next, I'm ready to pass back to Daryl the screen so that he can give you information on how and why you'll want to participate in the National Transit Map. On to you, Daryl.
Great, thank you. Just give me a minute to switch screens here. All right. Can everybody see the GTFS and DOT? And I'm going to go straight to the GTFS initiatives at US DOT. So the National Transit Map, it's a repository of voluntary provided public domain transit data collected from hundreds of transit agencies from across America. Currently, we collect GTFS data twice a year, but as the process and systems mature, we hope to collect that data up to 4 times a year, but nothing more. This provides the nation with discrete snapshots of American transit service, and also improves a growing archive of transit operations. So as we collect each iteration, we'll add that data to the archive, and that's available for download from the National Transit Map catalog and website, and also will be available from the National Transportation Library. And all of this data is there for everybody to plan and analyze and learn. Once the collection process and the publication methods have fully matured, and we get a stable data structure down, we're going to add the transit data to the National Spatial Data Infrastructure as a National Spatial Data Asset. So I've broken down the National Transit Map into 6 efforts, and those efforts are marketing, outreach and education, data collection, data publication, data archival, and then product development. Let's see, where am I? I lost my notes. Pardon me just a sec. So you'll find the National Transit Map at the website included here. It's bts.gov/content/National Transit Map. It includes an About section, How to Participate section, Maps and Apps section, and a Frequently Asked Questions page. The site's about 2 years old now. We're going to update it by the end of the year with some new information, and just trying to keep it fresh. The National Transit Map does tweet from the BTS Twitter account. You can follow us at Transport Stats on Twitter. We actively engage the transit community, metropolitan planning organizations, and regional councils through lots of emails, webinars, well, not lots of webinars yet, this is our first one, and public appearances. Our efforts focus on making the community aware of GTF initiatives at the Department of Transportation and encouraging participation. As of right now, you may only opt into the National Transit Map through the FACES website, which is the National Transit Database Interface. We're currently working on a web form that will be available through the BTS website that won't require a login. So that'll make things a little bit easier. I'm going to show you the FACES interface here real quick. Well, I'm going to show the presentation. Here we go. So if you'll notice this link here, that's this Prezi, and it is a presentation dedicated to describing the registration process through FACES. We're tight on time here, so I won't walk everybody through it. But please know that it's available for your use. And if you have any questions, you can always email the National Transit Map at dot.gov. Also, I'm available for chats about GTFS with your organization at any point. It could be a phone call, a meeting. I'm happy to give everybody a webinar. Marcy is very open to talking to everybody too. So if we have questions or if you need some special attention, please let us know. The Bureau of Transportation Statistics and the National Rural Transit Assistance Program have entered into this partnership to educate the transit, intercity bus, and passenger travel communities through these series of webinars. These webinars promote GTFS awareness, emphasize GTFS's significance, teach how to build GTFS compliant data, and introduce the GTF initiatives at the U.S. Department of Transportation. And we explain how communities can contribute to these important programs. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. You're our inaugural class. Your feedback will be important to us, so please let us know how we're doing. Our next webinar will occur on the 12th of June, and that will be a deep dive into the National Transit Map. I'll go through what it is, how it works, how to register. I'll walk you through the applications, the data catalog, and things like that. And then in July, we'll do a repeat of this webinar for those who want to attend again, or you can let your friends know, and we'll go through this process again just to raise awareness and to educate everybody. So collection. When agencies opt into the National Transit Map, they provide their contact information and grant BTS a Creative Commons attribution license to their data. What that license means is that we're allowed to use the data as long as we attribute that data to the agency that provided it. Along with that information and a little bit of luck, agencies will provide us a valid endpoint from which the GTFS file can be downloaded. The success rate of the automated downloading process is about 75%. And when the web scraping fails or collection fails because the URLs change or because the files require authentication to get to it. So if you're publishing GTFS data, I'd like you to please consider a static URL from which the data can be downloaded and also an authentication-free endpoint. It just makes it a lot easier for not only the National Transit Map to access your data, but also any other researcher or your customers to get to it. If we cannot find a valid endpoint from which we can collect GTFS data, we do go through the websites manually and try and find those links. If we can't find a link that's provided by the agency and we have permission, we will go to another website if it's available there. And then this link here, let me click on that. The data are available for download. We're on version 3 so far. We'll be collecting version 4 in September, but you can certainly look at these and download them from these endpoints here. So those are all the source files so far. These file names start with the NTD ID, and then the feed ID, and then the download ID. I know they're not very user-friendly. We're trying to think of a better way to do this. All National Transit Map data are published and available via the OSAP data catalog, and I'll open that for you here so you can have a look at it. If you go to the catalog and then press transit, that brings you to all the National Transit Map data that we offer. And you can download this data for use. The National Transit Map applications, I'll show you that real quick. I think, here we go. This page is where we, there's a link to the catalog. We also offer data services. These are REST endpoints that are can be used by applications for consumption, so you can import them into your map or include them in web-based mapping applications. We also include mapping applications, and those are based on participation. The green dots represent participating agencies. The white dots present agencies that we haven't contacted yet or haven't opted in yet. And the orange dots represent agencies that have declined. We also offer an application that shows agencies' capacity measured by vehicles operated at maximum service. We have broken it down into tribal agencies, urban agencies, and rural agencies, then agencies by region, all the agencies in the National Transit Database, and then we break that down by total bombs. You're welcome to play with that and give us any feedback that you have. And then we also have the map of the stops, buffers, and bounds. Pardon me. So each one of these boxes is a minimum geography boundary. And as you zoom in, more data is revealed. I'll zoom into Denver for you guys. And the closer you get, the more routes you start to see, and stations and stops. But feel free to play with that one too. This is a process. We're only a year and a half into it, and as it matures, we're going to be trying to improve it every day. Definitely through every iteration, we try and make it better. Some of our biggest priorities right now are to generate unique IDs for each feature, and then as we update the transit map, we'll have feature-based updates. So if a feature changes, it'll stay the same. If a feature doesn't change, it'll stay the same. If a feature does change, then we'll just change that record instead of replacing the whole thing. We're having difficulty with the stop times table. It's millions of records. It takes a long time to build and is difficult to serve. So that is our next big hurdle to jump, and hopefully we'll have that figured out when September comes around. Just a quick word about archival. Once the processing module is nice and mature, we'll go back through all the source data that we've collected, and build a national transit map. And each of those versions will be available from the National Transportation Library. And as I said before, we strive to improve the National Transit Map with every iteration. New products for 2019 include system documentation, just detailing how the system works, each functionality broken down into use cases. We're going to make a big effort on user guides about how to use the applications, how to register, how to participate and things like that, make that a little more formal documentation. We're going to build FGDC compliant metadata, and then create a national GTFS catalog. To do that, we're going to employ web crawling and machine learning to determine the state of GTFS in America. We want to know which agencies offer GTFS data and which agencies don't, so that we can better serve the transit community. We're also going to work on a shape.txt builder, where the users can submit their GTFS files, and then the application would return the shapes.txt file. The shape.txt file is important because that's the geometry for the trips, and it allows you to display that information on a map. Another effort going on at BTS or at USDOT is the Intercity Bus Atlas, where we're currently working with the American Bus Association and also Greyhound to establish a process through which we can collect intercity bus data that they publish in the form of GTFS as well. It would be very similar to the National Transit Map with a different license agreement. That license agreement would be a Creative Commons license, but it would be a no-profit license, so people couldn't use their data to make profit. We're trying to protect their competitiveness. This link will be alive for about a day, and then I'm going to turn it back off, just so you guys get an idea of looking at it. But it's in draft form now, and we don't want to let everybody know that, or we don't have too many people creeping around yet. Pardon me. All these routes are a different intercity bus line. Each one of the dots is a stop. And a quick word about the intermodal passenger stations. These are stations at which passengers can change from one form of transportation to another. So this becomes important as an interface between the National Transit Map and the Intercity Bus Atlas, just identifying where people can take transit to an intercity bus line so they can get to a different city. Studying that has become important to us. I just mentioned the intermodal passenger connectivity. It's definitely a key to integrating national transit data set with the intercity busing data set. All right, so this is where Marcia and I are going to answer your questions. If you have anything on your mind or want to talk about something, we're happy to discuss it now. It looks like Marcia's been answering questions in the chat room. So you can ask your question or submit it via chat.
While people are putting their thoughts together, Daryl, if you don't mind, I'll take back the screen for a moment so that I can show a sample of a trip plan. And you should be seeing Neely, Nebraska. And in Neely, Nebraska, they offer a dial-a-ride service. And they came to one of our presentations and they asked the question, but, how could I ever get on the map? We don't plan to go to a fixed route. What we came back with was a workaround. It is not perfect, because perfect would allow anyone to call from any door to go to any door. What we decided is it's better to have something than nothing. And so Neely, Nebraska now shows a quote, shuttle route. And in this shuttle route, on the left, the rider must call the agency. So in order to get picked up at a time probably not exactly 1:50 in the afternoon, they make the call just like they would for any other dial-a-ride service and arrange with the driver that they're going to go door to door. This particular agency has not gone live for any long span of time, but we have had other agencies where midday they offer dial-a-ride service, and we've not had any pushback or frustration where riders are saying, I'm standing at the corner, where's my bus? They do see this alert, and they can identify if they want to walk less, what are the details to get exactly where they need to go and to call in. So that was one of the questions we've had so far, Daryl, and I'd be more than happy to dive a little deeper. It's flexing or bending the rules which said we must have a bus stop, which you don't really always have in a dial-a-ride service, and you must sign these agreements and etc. We could get through those agreements. We just had to come up with a series of bus stops in order to make it look like we have a service that goes through town. And Daryl, you'd be able to consume this data if it were available?
Thank you.
Would there be any difficulty on your end?
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed. I think, are you addressing the
Yeah.
small data sets
Yep.
questions here by Dolly and Brent? Yes. It doesn't have to be an urban data set. It can be a rural data set, large or small. The more information we have, the better understanding we have. And from an agency standpoint, people Google transit options. And by creating this GTFS file and agreeing to Google's terms and publishing it, you're helping your users find your routes. So not only does it benefit us, but it also benefits you. And it helps tell your story and how you benefit your community. So we encourage you to use GTFS for your benefit. And if you're so inclined, we'd love to include it in the National Transit Map. Sorry, you're breaking up. We couldn't hear you.
At this point, Eileen, we're not planning to have a focus on GTFS real time. That is an important topic, and we have found that most of the service providers who offer, quote, GTFS RT are able to fulfill that need. And so at this moment, our goal at National RTAP is to get people in that first door, because you can't go to GTFS real time without GTFS static. And so a good question, but likely will not be any free toolkits available through National RTAP at this point.
If there is interest in a real-time webinar, I can reach out to some of the vendors. They might be able to offer something for you. Dolly, your question, this is not meant to replace your current systems. It is meant to enhance it or augment it.
And this is public-facing, so often your ride system might be for riders to log in and request a trip. This would just identify, is there an agency that I could log into and request a trip and plan a trip? So maybe I'm visiting Grandma in a community that I haven't been to. Grandma doesn't drive. I can get to Google Maps and identify the Greyhound can take me part of the way, or Amtrak, or Jefferson Lines, one of the intercity carriers. Now I need to get that last 5-10 miles. Is there an option? By providing this data in an integrated interface, the rider can see that. I'll make one more screen available. Those of you who are needing to catch up on your Title VI, you can now see a trip plan that's in Vietnamese. And so a rider who might not use English as their first language will get a chance to trip plan in a whole series of trip plan languages. And the way that we get there is by choosing on the left the, not the link. Which one is the one with language here? I know it's over here. This one?
Icon up.
No. No. I just created it for you, and now I can't remember how I did it.
So the person speaking?
So, it is here that you can choose.
You can see,
there it is. It's this choice of languages, and now we could put it in Danish or any other language. So it's right here on the left, all the different languages that you could choose from, and to help you with your Title VI. Are there questions that we have not answered, or you're not ready to publicly speak, but you could type them in for us? Okay, Dolly, don't be shy. Thank you. And anyone else? And this is where you'll find all the videos. So for anyone who didn't make the 30-second version of a 2-hour deep dive, you go to nationalrtap.org, look up GTFS Builder, and we break into very short 2 to 3 minute videos, each of the pieces of the puzzle. You will, however, need to go into your account, creating a free account with National RTAP, to download the toolkit. And we have heard if you're in Windows 10, you might need a slightly different version of your extract tools. So just let us know if you hit any hiccups. We can send you the files, not in a zipped folder or a zip file. But yes, National RTAP is here to help you, especially those communities with a handful of routes.
This presentation will be available for download. I have to send it to another organization at DOT. They'll close caption it and also transcribe it, so you'll be able to download it and read it from there. If you like, I can email participants all the links to the prezzies sometime next week.
Aaron is asking from VCTC how we could integrate the GTFS with the dial-a-ride system. I'm not sure I have anything more. We can explain a little bit, Aaron, how to go into and create an on-demand version of your data set, which is what we're doing here in this example in Neely, Nebraska. But this isn't a software solution for agencies to let go of their scheduling toolkit. It's more the public-facing. So maybe it would be an offline conversation, and I'm more than happy to show you our creative solutions. We just literally went live with Neely, Nebraska this week, and until it went live, I wasn't certain that we'd get through all of the various requirements that Google was putting on us. So let's have you encouraged to further your question, and anyone else. We're excited that there's an opportunity here to not lose a very large part of our rural communities, because what's important to your community is an on-demand service. And while Google has originally thought about New York City and large cities, I think we can fit within their requirements. Fantastic. I apologize if there's a question that wasn't answered. You might have to copy and paste it to the bottom of the chat. We do respect your time that you were here for this hour, but we are not going away. And we are available. And Daryl, should we have you take back the screen for a moment to show our contact information?
That'd be great. So there's our contact information. You can also reply to the National Transit Map email address I check that daily. Okay. I was going to make that the same decade, but my boss said that was a little too much. All right, guys, if there are no more questions, we're reaching the end of the hour. Please feel free to contact me or Marcy or the National Transit Map email address, and we'll be sure to get back to you guys. If you have the time to drop us a note about what you thought went well, if you think of ways how we can improve this webinar, please let us know. We want it to be useful to the community and you. So thank you for participating and for your feedback.